We are back. So we have now. This is the most ambitious segment of our day today, where we're going to be bringing in and balancing lots of people. So I hope you will bear with me as I'm going to be juggling the Zoom session here live. So hopefully, I'm sure that will be perfectly smooth. But in the outside chance that it isn't, but in any case, it is time to talk about space. Rob, I got to, this is Rob Goslin, of course. Rob Goslin, who is the director of our space program and the man who's made everything possible from the start, the one who kind of took my crazy idea and made it real and just ran with it. And oh man, Rob, the development of the space program has been so exciting, hasn't it?
Oh, it's been spectacular, Corey. You know, when I just look at back at where we were a year ago, who could have thought? Wow,
Who could
hey?
have thought? Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it really has. It isn't like in both, and I want to emphasize in both quantitative and qualitative measures, right? I mean, what we hoped for in like enrollment and everything else, we've gone so far beyond our initial, careful and conservative projections, but also qualitatively, like the what we hoped it would enable people to do, the kind of response that we were hoping for from people, the kind of benefit that we were hoping that students and faculty alike would gain from it. And what we've been hearing from people has been everything that we were sort of shooting for and more.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so should we dive in a little
We
bit?
should. Yeah. So I'm gonna step off stage here and hand things over to Rob, as Rob I think has some awards to give out, which is going to
Yes.
be a lot of fun. So let me get out of the way and hand things over to Rob to talk about space.
Oh, thanks, Corey. Yeah. Oh, well, we've had such an exciting year. For those of you who've never heard of space or participated yet, let's see. It's Signum Portals for Adult Continuing Education. And here at Space, we run monthly interactive modules for personal enrichment, which provides excellent teaching in a stress-free environment. How I like to describe space is at space, we learn what we love with others that love it for the sheer joy of it. This means no tests, no papers, no benchmarks for learning. You get to learn what you love at your own pace. And our modules run on a monthly system. So students can dive in, dive out in a given month, and our modules, they're 8 hours of class time, usually twice weekly for 1 hour, and they focus on small group discussion. And we provide a range of classes across our four different areas, or what we call sectors. So those are fantasy studies, beginning and advanced languages, creative writing, and general humanities. Each module consists of approximately 4 to 12 students. And again, it's discussion centered. And as Corey mentioned earlier in the State of the University address, it was last year, October, when he announced the beginning of the program, and December 2021 was our launch month. So we are coming on the anniversary of our first month in December soon. The program has been so well received, uh, a spectacular success. We've been expanding the program every month. We started in December with just 5 modules, and we've now tripled that or more. Every month we offer 15 or more-ish now. And so it's been a thrill. It's been so exciting. As Corey mentioned, not just quantitatively, but qualitatively. But those quantitative kind of measures just kind of also showcase just how wild it's been on the receiving end, just watching it do so much better, I guess, than we ever could have dreamed. And so, in terms of students, we average about 100 students a month now. In total, we've had over 200 different students take at least one module with us. So it has just been so marvelous. If you are interested in learning more about space, you can email us at our main email is space@signumu.org, or you can go to the Signum University website, and at the top there, you'll see non-degree programs, and you can click on space and learn a little bit more about what we're about. A bit of a layout for this particular segment. Just as Corey mentioned, today we just want to celebrate our 1-year anniversary with you. And to do that, we're going to be giving out some awards. In addition, 4 of our space preceptors have prepared a little learning segment, which we're calling a capsule, to give you a little taste of space, with each one featuring a different one of our sectors. Okay, so we're going to get down to business and give out some awards and freebies. So for each of our award draws, we are offering a bonus token to the winner. A token is worth any one space module redeemable anytime. And we have 10 award categories that we're going to announce over the course of this segment, and an ongoing possible award. We have never had a 5 token purchase in space in all the history of this 1 year in space so far. And so anyone who purchases a 5-pack today, we will up it to 6 tokens. So that is anyone Eastern time by midnight tonight. If anyone purchases a 5-pack, we will up it to 6. Okay, so we're gonna start with our first award. This we're calling the Lifer Award. This award goes to our highest enroller, the space student who is enrolled in the highest number of total modules over the course of this year. And the winner of the Lifer Award goes to, drumroll, Peter D. Congratulations, Peter. Peter has participated in 33 modules over the course of this past year. Congrats, Peter, for being such an active participant in space. And you have hereby won our Lifer Award. Our next category is called Ol Faithful Award. This award is a draw from amongst students who have been with us faithfully every month since space began in December 2021. So every student who has participated in at least one module from the very beginning, their names were entered for this draw. And the winner of the Ol Faithful Award goes to Will E. Congrats, Will. Thank you for faithfully flying with us. So I'm going to announce 2 more categories, and then we're going to transition into a capsule. So our third category, we have named the Air Miles Award. So this next award goes to the space student who is enrolled in the most modules in a single month. So the student who is our biggest multi-enroller. And the winner of the Air Miles Award, another drum roll, goes to Sean G. Sean has taken a total of 5 modules in a single month. 5 modules. There we go. Congrats, Sean. And thank you for not only providing excellent teaching. Sean is one of our preceptors as well as a student. Thank you for your hunger for learning, Sean, as well. Now I'll announce the 4th award. This we're calling the Space Explorer Award. This award is a draw where all space participants who have taken at least one module with us had their name entered. So we've picked 2 winners for the Space Explorer Award, and each will have 1 token added to their BlackBerry accounts. Meanwhile, as I'm announcing these, Jenny, my wife, is adding those tokens. So the Space Explorer Award and our 2 winners are David M. and Deborah G. Congrats, both of you, on winning the Space Explorer Award. So you've been granted a bonus token. All right, we're going to pause the awards and transition to our first space capsule. This will feature our fantasy studies sector. And presenting our first capsule is our esteemed space preceptor, Dr. Sarah Brown. And I will introduce Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown serves as Signum University's Language and Literature Department Chair and Thesis Coordinator for the MA program. She is a lecturer and preceptor for the MA program and also a preceptor in space. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, Rob. It's great to be here.
Oh, great to have you, Sarah. The title of Dr. Brown's capsule is Bring On the Numenorian Dancing Bears, and a little description about it. Amongst the little snippets of detail that we have about life on the island of Numenor, we find a fascinating reference to Numenorian bears and their custom of gathering yearly each fall to perform slow but dignified dances. There are other places in Tolkien's legendarium where we find references to bears, for example, in The Hobbit and the Father Christmas letters. And in every case, these bears are depicted as acting in ways very different to what we might expect of such wild creatures. Join Dr. Sarah Brown for a short but fun discussion of Tolkien's dancing bears. So over to you, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah,
Thanks, Rob.
can I interrupt real quickly?
Yes,
Because
you
it's
can.
come to my attention that I totally forgot something, and I can't forget this because so we want to do a drawing to give away because we're celebrating space today. We are giving away space tokens. We want everybody to try space who can. So we want to give away a space token to people who are attending the live sessions here today.
Oh, absolutely, Corey.
So
Yes.
what I'm going to do is on the Twitch chat. So we're going to do this through Twitch. So if you want to join the giveaway to join the drawing, make sure that you're in the Twitch chat. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to open it right now. There it goes. Okay, so if you're in Twitch chat, type !raffle, one word, so no space, !, and the word raffle. And you will be entered into the drawing at the end of the space segment. So after all of the space capsules are done and everything, then I'll close the drawing and we'll draw a winner at the end of it. Okay, so I see people entering now. So I was totally supposed to do that before and forgot, and I don't want to neglect it. Sorry, Sarah.
Did you space out?
Huh? I totally spaced it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Don't worry, that's the last joke.
Shockingly, for all of the space puns we have made in the last year, I don't think I ever made that one yet. So there we go.
There is my award for the most awful space pun.
There we go.
Next year.
Next year. Okay. I think we need to be keeping a list of these, Rob.
Yes, yeah, that's right. I'll write it down.
Okay, is it all right for me to share my screen?
Let's see. That I will attempt to arrange here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There you go. You should be clear.
Let me give it a sec. And now it lets me. Okie dokie. There we are. All right, Laurel, give me a quick thumbs up if you can see my screen. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sharon. Okie dokie. So this sort of gives a little bit of a flavor of a new space course that's coming up next December, which I'll tell you a little bit about. And when we get to the end of this space capsule, I'll tell you a little bit more about it because there's some really exciting details and things that might make you want to go, ooh, and perhaps sign up for it. So I'm going to keep you hanging on that until the very end of the capsule. But just to kind of situate this a little bit, this is the capsule on fantasy studies, and it'll come as no surprise to anybody who knows me, but I'm focusing on Tolkien. And I'm also going to give you a little snippet of the course that I'm doing in December, which is on the history of Numenor. So we're going to look at the important events, the significant people, the geography of the island, the culture of the Numenorians. And then I thought, why not dancing bears? So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to look at the dancing bears. Now, when I first read The Unfinished Tales a million years ago, I was struck by this tiny little section just halfway through the bit on the Second Age and Numenor. And it talks about bears And it's just this little section on bears. When The Fall of Numenor, which was recently published, came out, I checked, but there was nothing else revealed. But let's have a look at what is said about the Numenorian dancing bears. Okay, so the first little bit is this. There were bears in considerable numbers in the mountainous or rocky parts, both of a black and brown variety. The great black bears were found mostly in the forest area, that should say, that's a typo. The relations of the bears and men were strange. From the first, the bears exhibited friendship and curiosity towards the newcomers. These feelings were returned. At no time was there any hostility between men and bears. There were mating times, and during the first youth of their cubs, they could be angry and dangerous if disturbed. The Numenorians did not disturb them except by mischance. Very few Numenorians were ever killed by bears, and these mishaps were not regarded as reasons for war upon the whole race. Many of the bears were quite tame. They never dwelt in or near the homes of men, but they would often visit them in the casual manner of one householder calling upon another. At such times, they were often offered honey to their delight. Only an occasional bad bear ever raided the tame hives. Okay, so first thing that strikes me is that last little bit there about them not dwelling in or near the homes of men, but would visit them, and at such times were often offered honey to their delight, and only an occasional bad bear ever raided the tame hives. I'm getting just a little whiff of A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh with this one, but you know, I'm not going to tell you that that's exactly where Tolkien got his dancing bears from, but we're going to have a look at some of the potential ideas that his dancing bears for Numenor came from in a little bit. Now, I want to point out to you where we're talking about. So these bears lived in the Foresta part of the island of Numenor. So you can see the map there, and it looks like a five-pointed star. And if you look at the very top of the five-pointed star, that's the area where the bears come from. Now, this shouldn't be a surprise to us, I suppose, because Tolkien's other bears that we will discuss often come from somewhere north. So here we have them coming from the north of the island of Numenor. So let's continue with what we find out about these dancing bears. All right, so most strange of all were the bear dances. The bears, the black bears especially, had curious dances of their own, but these seem to have become improved and elaborated by the instruction of men. At times, the bears would perform dances for the entertainment of their human friends. The most famous was the Great Bear Dance in Quenya, that was Ruxuale, of Tompole in the Foresta, that northern bit, to which every year in the autumn many would come from all parts of the island, since it occurred not long after the Eruhantale, at which a great concourse was assembled. Okay, what was the Eruhantale? Does anybody know?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It's been ages since I've read this bit.
All right, anybody?
Is it when the king went up the mountain? I can't remember the name of the mountain now.
Yeah, the Meneltama.
Yes.
Yes, it is. In fact, the Eruhantale, well done. The Eruhantale was the last of the 3 prayers to Eru spoken each year by the king or queen of Numenor. And in the ceremony, the monarch and his or her people gave thanks to Eru, and it was held at the end of each autumn. So the king or queen would go up the Meneltama, accompanied by a silent, white-clad crowd of people, because only the king or queen was allowed to speak on the Meneltama, and they were the only ones allowed to actually voice any kind of prayer to Eru. And the ruler would make a prayer and a bloodless offering on the mountain summit. At this stage in Numenor, the offerings were bloodless. It's not until towards the end of the Second Age, with the coming of Sauron, that they actually have human sacrifices. So 3 great eagles, the witnesses of Manwë, would hover overhead, and the word Eruhantale means thanksgiving to Eru in Quenya, from the word Hantale, which actually means thanksgiving, which is a nice thing to know for this coming week, I think, for our American friends. Okay, now we're getting to the fun bit, all right? the dancing bears bit. So, to those not accustomed to the bears, the slow but dignified motions of the bears, sometimes as many as 50 or more together, appeared astonishing and comic. But it was understood by all admitted to the spectacle there should be no open laughter. The laughter of men was a sound that the bears could not understand. It alarmed and angered them. Okay, the first thing I want to say here is I don't normally read out huge swathes of text off a PowerPoint. If this was in a class, I would obviously be asking the students to have the book with them so that we could, look at it together. But I can't guarantee that everybody's going to have the book. So that's why I've committed the ultimate PowerPoint sin today and read it out to you. Okay, so what does this say about the bears? They're pretty anthropomorphic, actually. Black bears have dances of their own, but the humans also teach them dances. So what does this imply about the bears? What can we sort of take from the language of the text and think about what that means for the bears themselves? Any thoughts?
Well, at first, I what comes to mind is, and I don't know the proper name for the Asian, I believe Chinese practice with the motions, that you do. Yeah, that thing, the meditative. It's almost that comes to mind in some ways to this description. That, and also sort of there's an ant-like, natural slow process to their performance. So I'm kind of relating it to those things that I know. So that's what's coming to me first.
So what we're getting there is something that's quite thoughtful, and like the spiritual practice that goes into Tai Chi, for example. So something very thoughtful and meaningful, but also very dignified. Each movement kind of almost meaning something. And I think that actually gives us an idea of how Tolkien wants us to view these bears, that they are dignified, that they have thought processes, that they are intelligent, and they must be intelligent because 50 of them dancing together. I mean, who's doing the choreography? Someone off at the side is actually doing choreography and getting 50 bears to all do it together.
And I'm getting a sorry.
No, go ahead, Ruth, go on.
I don't know. I was thinking it reminds me a lot of sort of the older religions that we have. They have certain dances that they do that are almost like a type of worship. And I think that fits very well with the timing of the event. So it's not just going up the mental Dharma and things like that that's being done in worship. It's like this is a part of the whole festival. And because there's no intimation here that the bears are celebrating Eruhantale. It's just their Tompole, which is their festival, seems to come almost immediately after the Eruhantale, and it's just a convergence of two separate festivals, isn't it? I mean, we get that quite a lot with real world religions where festivals do sort of match up and blend together. And I get a lot of that sort of feeling from it.
Yeah, maybe it's the time of year where they're coming together to celebrate something in particular, but the time of year kind of generates that desire to have some form of festival. Sharon, you had your hand up first, then I'll come to Carrie.
The other thing I would recognize, and also this connects to the first passage we read, is that while there is connection or communion or communication between humans and bears, there is still a divide of understanding. Perhaps there's a divide of otherness between the two, that we can't assume that they're like, Yogi Bear and Boo Boo or anything like that. Or even, the Winnie the Pooh. It's definitely that there is a difference. They have their own internal traditions and communications that even probably the most that connected wouldn't understand them.
Right, and that sort of points me towards the end of this section, where it says that it appeared astonishing and comic. And that's kind of unfortunate. That makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, actually, because to the bears, this is clearly a really significant moment. This is a yearly celebration, and they permit the humans to come and see this happening. But the humans find it a bit comic. I find that a little
Well,
bit.
not all. It said those who just don't, who are not accustomed to them. So I feel like there are some who, it as with anything, that even in our own experience, right? There are some who are respectful, and there are those who are rather foolish and ignorant, and don't understand. So it's a nice reflection of actually what we see, between cultures and different people groups.
Yeah, that's well thought through. Thanks, Sharon. Carrie, what did you have to add there?
A bunch of the things you guys just said fall right into the parallels that I see between him introducing the Numenorians in the first passage and adding the bears, and him introducing the bears here and adding the Numenorians. And in both cases, he has language that identify both races as inhabitants on par.
Yeah.
That in the first section, the bears are the ones that are egalitarian and are okay with learning about the ways of the Numenorians. And then the second one, it's the Numenorians who need to learn about the ways of the bears and be a little more egalitarian. And I think this pairs or follows really well with Tolkien's emphasis on the fact that the manifestations of nature that we can interact with need to be respected and understood. And laughter is absolutely inappropriate. There are times when laughter is wonderful, but it doesn't come in a mocking way from Tolkien towards nature.
No. Yeah. And he also makes it clear here that the bears don't really understand what laughter actually denotes, which again tells us about a separation of two very different cultures that have to actually build understanding towards each other.
That, and I think laughter as a source of sound, they may not have understood why the men would be laughing, but they did understand that their dance was not for men. And for the men to interject themselves into the dance was understandable. And so yes, that would be alarming and angering, because they were invited to witness, not participate, not receive, and not react. So it seems like his bears are community organized enough to have that level of understanding of ways and patterns of respectful behavior.
Right. Thanks, Carrie. Thank you. Sharon.
Regarding the laughter, this isn't just in the context of the bear's performance, but if we think of the passage before, it's in all the relationships. So perhaps it is just something that, again, is a barrier of understanding between the two. Even in the context of the passage that was shared before, where they, leave food out, or they kind of hang out together or kind of coexist, there's still a lack of understanding of both sides.
Yeah, great points, everybody. So just to add on to this, there seems to be absolutely no implication at all that there was hunting of the bears. That even though a few humans inadvertently were killed, it's probably because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time doing the wrong thing where the bears were. So there's no animosity even when some of the Numenorians were actually killed by bears. And there's also, and I think this is an important point, because this is different to the case in our primary world, there's no sense of them training or forcing these bears to dance for human entertainment. And I think that is really significant, because of course we find in our primary world, if we look at our different cultures in this world where dancing bears have been, and they're mostly gone, but they are still to be found in a few countries. that these are bears that are treated pretty badly, and they are trained in a very painful manner, in which the trainer will play music and the bear will be put on a metal platform through which there are electric shocks and heat, and the bear will lift their paws to get away from the electric shocks and heat. And so the next time they hear that music, they will actually make those movements. And there's no sense of that here at all. There's no sense of the humans feeling themselves to be dominant over the bears at all. Ruth, go on.
I was just wondering, sort of timeline wise, was this written before The Hobbit? Because I'm getting almost sort of like proto Beyond feelings from it. They're not fully changing into men, but it's kind of got the thought of that there.
I'm coming to The Hobbit, so you're right.
Sorry.
No, it's because it's good to spot these things. There are a number of dancing bears in other books that Tolkien wrote, so we'll have a look at those as well. So let me come to those. Get rid of that dancing bear. Okay, so the first one is Karhu, the North Polar Bear, from the Letters from Father Christmas. Now, this bear, of course, is rather delightful because he is a little mischievous. He gets himself into trouble a lot. He's described as doing all sorts of kind of silly things. Now, he has two nephews. One is called Paksu, the other one is called Valkatuka, and they're both very mischievous. Valkatuka, for example, he swallows a ball of red string, thinking that it's cake. Karhu himself is often described as silly and doing silly things, like he sets off fireworks and scares the reindeer. He falls through the roof of the house. He falls down the stairs. He chops his paw instead of a tree. He gets lost in caves for a week and has to be rescued by the cave bear. But he is also a dancing bear. And there he is dancing with the penguins. And I have my copy of the Father Christmas Letters here. And on page 190, there's a tiny description. Okay, so it says, the picture is of polar bear dancing with their chiefs. By their chiefs, it's the penguins. They amuse us enormously. They don't really help much, but are always playing funny dancing games and trying to imitate the walk of polar bear and the cubs. So Karhu is a fun-loving polar bear who gets up to mischievous things, but he too dances. Okay, so next one is, just for you, Ruth, dancing bears in The Hobbit. Okay, so we know that great and ancient bears had lived within the Misty Mountains for some time. By the late Third Age, their number had diminished. Gandalf tells Bilbo that giants had taken up their homes in that mountain range. And according to Gandalf, some believe that Beorn, the skin changer, was a black bear that was descended from them. And Gandalf says in chapter 7, Queer Lodgings, I have been picking out bear tracks. There must have been a regular bears meeting outside here last night. I soon saw that Beorn could not have made them all. There were far too many of them, and they were of various sizes too. I should say there were little bears, large bears, ordinary bears, and gigantic big bears, all dancing outside from dark to nearly dawn. So, though the annual Great Bear Dance that we heard about a little while ago, that obviously ends with the downfall of Numenor, the ordinary bear dances, they live on into the Third Age. And as we can see, according to Gandalf, bears of various sizes east of the Misty Mountains occasionally gather outside of Beorn's Hall for a regular bears meeting, where they dance from dark to nearly dawn. So it's possible that this dance could be related in some way to the Great Bear Dance. Now, Ruth, you asked, in terms of timeline, which was written first? The Bears of Numenor or the Bears of the Hobbit? Okay, the best I have found, because I couldn't track down an exact date, is that the Bears of the Hobbit were written first. with the bears of the Second Age, because the Second Age stuff is so small, there's so little of it. I think that the bears of the Second Age, the Numenorian dancing bears, were actually created slightly later, but I'm not 100% on that one, and I'm happy to be corrected. Okay, so what we do have, though, is something that is a clear link between bears of the Second Age and bears of the Third Age. And we're meant to take the dancing bear moot of The Hobbit equally seriously. This is not, you know, bears putting on party hats and tootling party favors and all that kind of thing. This is a proper bear dance in which these bears come together. And we know it's serious because Beorn is serious. That's a serious character. So I think that's how we are meant to perceive them. Okay, so that's the bears of The Hobbit, but there's more, because I don't know if any of you have read Mr. Bliss. There are bears in Mr. Bliss. Now, there's just one moment in Mr. Bliss where it seems like the bears are dancing. He's got 3 bears. They're called Archie, Teddy, and Bruno. Okay, and they do actually... I've got my copy of Mr. Bliss right here. Such a lovely book. Okay, so this is where the 3 bears have invited a bunch of people over to supper. It says, the bears really took pains with that supper, and the Dawkinses and Mrs. Knight and old Mr. Day forgave them altogether when they saw it. And when they had eaten it, they danced and sang together like old friends. So that, to me, says that the bears were joining in the dancing. So we have dancing bears in Mr. Bliss. And if you haven't read Mr. Bliss, it is the most delightful little story. So you really, really should. Okay, so now I want to give you a little bit of language nerdery. Just to add to all of it. Tolkien, as we know, loved his language nerdery, and he actually used a number of different languages and bear words, if you like. So in Sindarin, the word for bear was graw, and I've put where these come from, by the way, on the slide. So this one comes from Vinya Tengwa. Early Naldorin had 2 words for bear, brog and megli, with a variation meglivorn, which meant black bear in particular. And the Quenya word is morco, which shares a root with brog. And that comes from The Lost Road and Other Writings, Part 3. So that's from the History of Middle-earth. In Common Eldarin, it's given as morocco and morocke. Morocke means she-bear. And that comes from Parma Elder Lamberon, 21. Adunaic, which is particularly interesting to those of us looking at the Numenorian bears, because Adunaic, of course, was a language spoken on Numenor. You get Urug in common gender singular, which is bear as a species or creature. The masculine singular Urgu, meaning male bear, and the feminine singular Urgi, meaning female bear or she-bear, and you find that in Sauron Defeated, which is another of the History of Middle-earth series. So just a little bit of language nerdery. Go on, Ruth.
Sorry, I'm just noticing I'm not the best with the languages, but a lot of the words are bringing up other words that I think of as perhaps for the bad guys. So the sort of prefix of Mordor, Morgoth, things like that. And then even with the Adunaic, or however you say it,
Adunaic, yeah,
that's it. They're bringing up almost, I'm feeling like Urukai and things like that. It seems odd that the bears have been not necessarily friendly, but not something to worry about. But the words have got this sort of underlying feeling, to me anyway, of sort of the not so good side of Tolkien's world.
That's really interesting. Yeah, now I looked at like you, the languages are not my speciality. I'd have to ask someone like Andy Higgins on this one. But when I was looking at Urgi and Urgu, I was thinking Ursa, which of course is Latin for bear. So I was just wondering if perhaps sort of there was a bit of a, I know that adunaic is not based on Latin or anything like that, but I just wondered if kind of that came from there. But the more prefix, it does seem to kind of trend along with some words that give us pause. I don't know is the answer to that, but that's the sort of thing that in the course that I'm running in December, that we could have a real deep dive into Numenor. I promised no more jokes, but I'm afraid I did it. We'll wave that one aside. Yeah, okay, I'll stop now because Laurel is looking really severe. Let's move this one along. Okay, so that's just a taster of what the sorts of things we're going to talk about in this December space class, which is called The History, People and Culture of Tolkien's Numenor, with special guests. But who do we have as special guests? Well, the first special guest we have, and I'm so excited, is Brian Sibley, the author of The Fall of Numenor. Now, he's currently recuperating from knee surgery, so he hasn't told me which class he's going to be able to come to, and I suspect it will be towards the end of December because he's got to recuperate from the knee surgery. The artist here, this is one of Ted Naismith's pictures. I'm afraid putting it on the PowerPoint just cut off his signature, which is in the top left. Sorry, Ted. Yeah, so Brian Sibley is going to be joining us probably towards the end of December. And the other one who will be joining us, and I believe she's coming on the 14th of December, is Dr. Christine Larson, who has written extensively on astronomy in Numenor and Tar Maneldur. And I'm very excited about that because there is nothing that Chris Larson doesn't know about astronomy in Middle-earth. So we've got some really, really exciting special guests. You don't have to listen to me for the entirety of 4 weeks. You can also listen to these very exciting people as well. So I hope that some of you folks will sign up for this course because we've got quite a decent number already signed up for it, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And that's everything from me. So thank you very much for coming to this space capsule. And I'll stop sharing. There we go. All done, Rob, and on time. Look at that. All done, Rob, and on time.
Oh, Sarah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and thank you for that language nerdery too, and announcing your course in December. It just shows the flavor of what's possible in the fantasy sector. Appreciate that so much. In December, we are offering 5 fantasy modules in total, and in January we are candidating 6 modules. So if you're interested in learning more, check out our fantasy sector in BlackBerry for more details. And that is at blackberry.signumuniversity.org, where you can see a list of all of our courses upcoming. We'd love to have you fly with us. So thank you again, Dr. Brown. Okay, we are going to announce some more awards. So we'll return to our awards and I'll just announce a couple more. So our 5th category is called our High Hopes Award. This award goes to the space student who has the most modules wishlisted on BlackBerry. For those of you who haven't had a chance to check space out yet, as you know, BlackBerry is our system where we manage all things space, and there is a wishlisting feature where students can add to their wish list any module that they're interested in taking with us, and this is a way for us to contact you if something you are interested in is currently running or candidating. And so for our award, the High Hopes Award goes to our highest wishlister, Catherine C. Congrats, Catherine. She had a total of 69 modules on her wish list. So congrats. Okay, the 6th award, this has my favorite name of them all. This is the Out of the Airlock Award. This award goes to our highest wish lister, who has never yet taken a course with us. So now it's time for you to fly out the airlock in space. The Out the Airlock Award goes to Gloria. Congrats, Gloria. She has had a total of 35 modules on her wish list, and we are adding a token to your account now, and we look forward to seeing you in space. Okay, well, we are going to transition to our next capsule. And this time we're going to feature our creative writing sector. Presenting this capsule is our dear Sparrow F. Alden. And I'll give a little intro to Sparrow. Sparrow is a faculty member in our MA, Signum Academy, and Space programs. She is a Signum advisor, the host of Writer Space, and a friend. Please welcome Sparrow Alden. Oh, I see Sparrow. Hi, Sparrow. Hear your voice.
Hello, hello. Do I need to click a button or anything?
I think you're good. Let me just see. Oh, there, I see you. Okay, great. Yeah, I thought before we dive in, Sparrow, I wondered if I could ask you a few kind of interview questions.
I would love that.
Okay. One question I wanted to ask is, what has been one of your space highlights so far as a preceptor? You've been with us from the launch month in December, regularly
From the launch month
offering.
in December.
Yeah. So we'd love to hear, just one of your highlights.
There have been so many presentations at moots, people writing their first piece, but I have to tell you that one of the things that made my heart bust open happened this month when we had a couple of people come into creative writing, and there are several familiar faces who've been around from month to month to month. And when two of them wrote to me and said, hey, how can we make sure that our new writers feel really welcome? That told me that we had built community, which is so precious and so much the Signum way of doing things. And then we proceeded to haul our new friends, not even kicking and screaming, they wanted to be there, into the world of telling stories together. And that made me, well, surprise, surprise, it made me weep. Okay, yeah, that was it.
Oh, that's powerful. Yeah. Oh, appreciate you sharing that. Another question. I know that you've been studying some brain science lately and integrating this new knowledge as a preceptor, as you facilitate your writing classes. Can you explore that with us a little bit?
A bit, in my understanding, and a lot of this comes from The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. I got to go to a week-long seminar with him. And what I've learned about memory is that an event can be encoded in so many different ways and places in the brain. And something that is a very emotional memory, the emotional part is encoded broadly on the right side of the brain. Don't ask about left-handed people. No one knows. Yet, the right side of the brain is not good at time. So if a frightening or angry memory is encoded there because it needs to be, because there's so much emotional content, but it's only there, it gets stuck. The normal progress of memories is to be experienced in the present tense. The emotional content comes first because that tells you if you're in danger. And then over time, it is encoded in a more balanced way in the brain. And then we can see it as something in the past because the left side will deal with the past. But if that jump across the corpus callosum doesn't take place, there's a stuck feeling. And on the left side of the brain is the verbal center. So if we write or tell our memories, or we write or tell fiction that draws and is relevant to our memories. That's a way of balancing that memory across the whole brain so that it goes back into the proper. We still have that emotional content available to us, but it's not happening right now. It's in the past. And so people who are interested in the writing the hero space module,
Yes.
that's what that module is based on. And that's been my big sort of heart work in the last couple of years.
Oh, wow. Now, you've not only precepted in space, you've also participated as a student. So can you share how that experience has been? Perhaps, like, yeah.
Absolutely. I've taken probably half a dozen space modules, and I discover that when I go in there, I'm going in as a writer. I took the game mastering class in September, and I said, can I use these ideas as I world build for stories? And oh, poor Sean Gaffney, I went into his geology module in October, and he's okay, here are the ways that the mountains are built. And I said, yes, but what if the mountain spirits don't want to do that? Oh Lordy. But here's the thing, I did a little self-challenge. In August, I took Serena Higgins's Poetry in Forms, and I like to think of myself as a poet, sort of in the way that most fourth graders think of themselves as poets. I throw cool words in a great order. That's fun. And Dr. Higgins, who has studied and worked with poetry in the classic type forms, really taught me a lot. And we got through the month and everyone's making poems and talking about each other's poems, and it was great. And ever since then, I have had Writers Forge meetings with Dr. Higgins to keep improving my poetry. And so that turned into a whole new path of my improving my writing. So it's been very exciting being a student in space.
Yeah, thank you for sharing and the way you participated. Well, it's time for your capsule, Sparrow. I'll share your title and a little bit about it. So this capsule is entitled A Unique Shape for a Collective Story. Have you been confused by the conflicting story planning advice from writing programs like Save the Cat and Story Grid and 27 Chapters, to name a few? Sparrow is going to cut this Gordian knot with some writing advice, which we'll try out collaboratively. We're going to end up with a never-before-seen shape for a shared story plan, ready to be written in your own unique voice. Oh, and we'll have loads of fun doing it. Okay, thanks, Sparrow, and over to you.
Oh, very good. May I share my slides, please, Rob?
Yes.
All right. Do I have the, I'll wait until you kick the magic button. But meanwhile, I'm going to put the link to my slides in the chat for folks who want to review those at home, and also folks who use screen readers. Any slides which were primarily a graphic something, in the speaker's notes, you will find a description of that graphic.
All right. Dr. Olson, we need Sparrow to become host, and I can't make that happen right now. So if you are there, Corey, I can make Sparrow the host. That would be great.
Fantastic. And yes, I think, Christopher, you're in the right place to join the crew. All righty. Do I have a magic button? I don't have a magic button yet.
The magic button yet?
We're waiting for magic. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to wave the wand of the permission fairy. Here we go. Ready, Sparrow? Bling.
You'll have to show it on paper, Sparrow. You'll have to get creative.
I will have to get creative. That's okay. Then I'm just going to read off of the slides that you cannot see unless you followed the link. So there, someone tell me when I should have the ability. No ability. That's cool. That is
the link in chat, Sparrow.
Thank you very much, Jean. All
Welcome
righty.
to my world, Sparrow.
There you go. There you go. Fortunately, I have lovely guide. Okay, so welcome to the creative writing sector of space. I am your gracious host, Sparrow, and stories, you will not be surprised to think about the idea that stories have shapes, stories have patterns, stories have elements of familiarity. Of course they do. We're thinking about the cauldron of story. We're thinking about ideas across time. And you may very well have heard of the heroic story shape. But do we mean Otto Rank's heroic mythotype? Do we mean Lord Raglan's mythic archetype? Do we mean Joseph Campbell's hero's journey? Do we mean Faith Acker's continuum of heroic service? Do we mean Alexis Height's model of the child hero? There are so many different ways to form a story. What about the 3-act structure with a beginning, middle, and end? Well, doesn't each one of those acts have a beginning, middle, and end? That's called the 9-block method of story making. And what if each of those blocks itself has a beginning, a middle, and an end? That's the 27 chapters method of Katie Tastic from YouTube and other great places on the internet. And that leads us to the notion of fractals, the people who, believe it or not, combine lots of pattern recognition software to stories have said, you know, the stories that have lasted a really long time are like fractals. They have a big shape, but that big shape is repeated over and over within the story. So I'm going to try once again to share my screen. Nope, that's not happening. Yes, mathematics for music, mathematics, and all these things. So it is very great. Back to looking at the slides. So how should we shape our stories with all of this advice happening? Do we follow human development in the cognitive, psychosocial, adult development, moral development, faith development? What do we do? What do we use the stages of grief and change as Mary Robinette Kowal does? Do we use the story grid that Tim Grolin has invented, the Save the Cat beat sheet, which we talked about last October right here in the space capsule? There are a lot of folks right now, a lot of people are ready to write. They want to write. They're ready to get their stories down. And so a lot of writing instructors will say, here's a method that will work. And sometimes they say, this is the method that works. This is the only shape of stories. And I am here to challenge that notion because, there we go, I'm a co-host now. Because anyone who is saying, I'm going to tell you something if you give me money, I'm automatically a little leery of. So here we go. I'm sharing this very beautiful, we're on like slide 20 or something. As Kurt Vonnegut says, there are a lot of story shapes. He's got the down up of man falls in hole, man climbs back out again. There's the up down up of boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back again. There's the one step at a time climbing up like Cinderella, who gets the shoes and the coach and the footman and the dress, and then it's midnight and she falls off a cliff, but then the shoe fits and she goes tearing off. In the speaker notes on this slide, you will find the link to Vonnegut giving this little talk as he did toward the end of his career. And it is brilliantly funny, and it is well worth spending 17 minutes watching him talk about the shapes of story. Okay, but onward. So there are plenty of story shapes that work. There's something in the chat. Oh, thank you very much. and onward. So what I thought we would do today is make up a new story shape. And we could sit and debate it for hours and hours, and then I would not fit in my time slot, and then that would be wrong. So I'm yes, this is a slinky. Here's a little graphic of a slinky. What it is a spiral that is leading upward as the story moves onward. And I hope, boy, I don't know if you see me leaning forward or backward, whatever. Pretend that onward is to the right. There we go. So this is actually something I've used before. Here's a picture of me storyboarding. And the idea is that as a character moves through their own story, they visit things in a circular way. Like maybe first I visit, here are my neighbors. I visit Linda, then I visit Lindsay, then I visit Andrea, and then I come home. And I keep visiting those wise women of the neighborhood. But each time I, the character, have grown, right? I'm able to absorb a lesson in a new way, and until some goal is reached. So here are my storyboarded cards laid out in a spiral to remind me, oh, at this point in the story, I need to revisit the concept that I put on the left. So Ruth has her hand up. Ruth, I don't know if you can speak up, but please do.
Yeah, I can. I was just thinking, it's almost like being at university. You know, you take the class, you pass the class, you take another class, but you still have to sort of revert back to last year's, like the beginning class, or as you go along. Is that the sort of thing that we're looking for?
That's the perfect example. Yes. If I take intro Old English and I've got good notes, now next year when I'm taking Beowulf in Old English, I'm going back to those notes because I need that knowledge to build the new knowledge. Ruth, couldn't have said it better. Thank you very much. So I wonder, and wonderful Patricia Minger, thank you for joining us today, Patricia. Patricia is over on a Google document, and as we come up with words to put on this slide, she is going to very, very sweetly also put them on our Google document. All right, so I would love someone or some 5 to suggest different levels of being human, different ways of being, we're going to stick to humans today, sorry. Different ways of being human that we could assign to each of these 5 levels. This could represent age, cognitive development, but let's see if we can invent something new. So what is a very basic way of being human?
Showing compassion.
Showing compassion. And we will come back and say, well, what are the 3 neighbors that we might visit, or the 2 neighbors that we might visit in the showing compassion circle? Okay, another way of being wonderfully human.
Empathy. It's slightly different. Compassion, it's more in tune with
it is. It's there's showing compassion, and then there's being alongside the person who might be in pain.
Yeah.
And we're just not going to worry about the fact that I've got different fonts in those text boxes. All right. A third way of being human. Christopher, you've unmuted yourself.
A relationship with power. That is, if one might wield power, you might have different levels of learning about how that would work.
You know what? I'm going to use that as a benchmark at each of these levels. So in the showing compassion level of the story, the character might have to wrestle with their relationship with power, but then they have to think about that again when they're at the empathy level. right? Oh my goodness, you guys are good. Okay. So we've got showing compassion is a way of being human. Being empathetic is a way of being human. What's another way of being human, please?
Finding purpose or direction.
Oh, I'm just going to say purpose because I think that fills in very nicely. And maybe the first thing we will struggle with on that level is our relationship with power.
Collaborating and problem solving.
You know what? I'm going to put problem solving in one box and collaborating at the top.
How about overcoming fear?
Ooh. Okay. Yes. And I'm going to put collaboration. So how about, you know what? I think we can use overcoming fear in all of these different ways. Yes. So at the showing compassion level, we have to think about, our character has to think about a relationship with power. And
I think Lynn is trying to say something too, but the audio cut out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to look in the chat then.
Oh boy.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Anger.
Ooh. Okay, that is a thing to deal with at many different levels. So we've got what we're going to deal with at each level is anger, a relationship with power. I can see how those will be related, and overcoming fear. So what we've got now is 5 mini chapters and 3 things to happen in each of those chapters. And Patricia, is it clear to you what I would like you to put in those, in that document?
Yes, I think so. I've been typing.
You are amazing. And if you want to hop into the slides and copy paste or whatever you need to do. So our 5 mini chapters are showing compassion for this character. Oh, we need a name for our character. Quick. There's no time.
Squirrel.
I was gonna say Spud.
Squirrel.
Squirrel's great.
Our character's name is Squirrel. Squirrel is in a situation, and their first chapter, they are learning to show compassion. Who is going to write 3 sentences or so in that chapter? Oh, Kate, thank you so much for volunteering to do that. Kate Connors is going to be the showing compassion chapter. That was me dragging and kicking and screaming. Who will write?
Where am I writing this?
I'll give you the link in just a moment. We're giving Patricia time to make sure the document looks the way she wants it. Who will write the empathy mini chapter? Speak up. There's no time. It's November.
I'll go.
Okay, was that Ruth?
It was, yes.
Fantastic. Ruth is going to write the empathy mini chapter with, as Squirrel is learning empathy, how does this relate to anger, relationship with power, and overcoming fear? Mini chapter 3 is called Finding Purpose. Who would like the Finding Purpose mini chapter?
I'll take that. Oh, nope.
All
You
right.
go ahead. You go ahead.
You spoke up first.
Okay.
Okay, Christopher spoke first. He's got the Finding Purpose mini chapter. And who was the voice that was speaking at the same time as Christopher?
It was I, oh illustrious one.
Oh, it is Jean. Jean, would you, because you are Jean, would you like the problem solving mini chapter?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. And Carrie, would you do the collaboration mini chapter?
Sure.
Okay. Does everyone have a mini chapter who is in our mini group? Let me click buttons and see. Okay. Oh, Lynn. Lynn, may I give you a special job?
Sure.
Would you please, at the very beginning, write some sort of introductory, like here is Squirrel, or a description of Squirrel or something, And then as you see everyone else writing their mini chapters, then you'll write your version of "And They Lived Happily Ever After."
Oh, okay.
So is this going to be a great coherent story? Heck no. But that's okay. We have the wand of the permission fairy, and we're trying out a brand new shape. So there are lovely, lovely things in the chat. And so on we go. I'm going to give the folks on Zoom a link to this document. Is this our, I don't know if this is our, and oh, look at me putting links in. Aren't I clever? Okay, here's a link. This is a link to the, nope, that's not the link to the document. That's something completely different. It was a link actually to my dog's veterinarian's phone number. So, you know, whatever. Here's the link to the document that Patricia has been preparing for us. And I'm going to hop there on my screen and I'm going to make it an appropriate size. So if you can find your chapter, oh, Patricia, this is perfect. It's a collaborative story about the squirrel. You're going to write about, find your chapter, write about anger, a relationship with power, and overcoming fear. This could be very bullet pointsy. This could be very outlinesy. For example, level 0, finding acorns. Squirrel was angry that he could not find acorns. He yelled at the supreme squirrel being, relationship with power, and then overcame his fear of starvation by collecting 4 million acorns. It's very short and sweet, but I think we're going to have a little fun here.
Is squirrel male or female, do we think?
Oh, let's use they. Let's use they.
Okay.
So I'm writing an introduction.
Yes, please.
To squirrel.
You might do a little setting, Lynn.
Okay.
And no one else will know your settings, so they're going to refer to different things, and that's okay.
Oh, so I'm not writing it in the document, or
you're writing above the word level 1.
Yeah.
Above the level 1 mini chapter, right where your name is. Yes, you're doing perfectly. Oh, this is tumble to the ground. Oh, the little brother squirrel. And have we lost someone who was doing the Finding Purpose mini chapter? I
believe that was Chris.
Oh, we lost Christopher. May have. I wonder if what's happening. Hold on, I'm going to make that a heading. Christopher, there's a heading called Level 3 Finding Purpose that should help you get to your mini chapter. And I apologize for not being more cognizant.
Wow, my spelling is so bad. Sorry.
And Rob, would you please let me know where we are on time?
Sure, Sparrow. So we have just under 10-ish minutes.
Okay. Very good. I just got a text from Christopher saying he's having a very exciting technology moment. So we might miss chapter 3 for now. And I invite everyone in the audience to have a just glorious time composing chapter 3 in their own heads. All right. We have My goodness. And please do not worry about spelling. It's November. Fortunately, it's really only September, so I don't have to finish my NaNoWriMo novel yet. But actually, it is National Novel Writing Month. We don't go back and edit, not for anyone. Again, the permission fairy says it's okay to edit later. Oh, Lynn, how lovely. Yes. Okay. Hmm. While our writers are writing, I do want to mention something about space to folks who've never been in there. For some modules, like the one that the wonderful Dr. Brown modeled for us a moment ago, the preceptor brings great material and turns it into a discussion and really leads the way and has brought in text and quotations, and the activities are contained within the time of the class meeting. Some people, not to name names, will challenge you to write a 50,000 word novel in a month, while at the same time reading up to like 50,000 words plus of your classmates and commenting on them for peer feedback. So that's a thing you might consider. We have a lot of fun, but I've gotten so much joy out of pulling stories out of people. No, I don't demand 50,000 words. My goodness. We're going to go for another minute. And remember, if your mini chapter is incomplete, that's fine. All right. Oh, thank you very much, Rob. Rob tells me that does not have to be a hard 1 minute. I can be a little soft about that. Yeah, internet happens. That's cool. When we meet during space class times, we do peer review. We do writing exercises like this. We do some games. We do. I consider it part of my job to go out and listen to Tim Grell's story grid method and to go through Neil Gaiman's masterclass and to bring techniques and ideas back to the group. And boy, it's fun. Okay. So let's wind down in about 10 seconds. And if you remember, if you leave off in the middle of the sentence, you know where you're going to pick it back up. Okay. Okay, lovely people, here we go. In a small park that used to be part of a large forest. There we go. The ground is dusted with snow on this cold gray October day. Is the ground frozen? Squirrel was supposed to meet their friend Chippy, Squirrel's bestest friend. They've known each other since they were wee rodents. Squirrel rushed down the tree as acorns tumbled to the ground. It was a race to collect them before others got them first. Then their little brother chittered at them from a nearby tree. He was stuck. Squirrel paused and chittered back, "Get yourself down." And they went for a nice big acorn that rested just a few trunks away and then froze when a screech of dismay rang out. Squirrel's little brother was hanging precariously from a branch. Squirrel was torn for a long moment. The acorn was beautiful and rich and brown, but then Squirrel sighed and darted back up the tree to rescue their brother from an imminent and ungraceful tumble. Little brothers were so much work, but in the end, brothers were even more valuable than acorns. Chapter 2, Empathy. They are with all their acorns thinking of the other families. They are angry that the tree is not providing enough food for the family, but also for the other families. As they are looking out of the park, they realize that it is not the tree's fault. They realize it is because the area for the trees is getting small. The trees are struggling to grow as they once did. The whole family begins to fear that it cannot stay in their home and they may need to move away from the area and all their friends. They realize that they could help the tree, planting a few of their acorns. Squirrel knew that they must find their sibling. Chapter 3, Finding Purpose. But they were angry that this task fell to them. What adventure would be required in order to make that purpose real? Would they have to confront the great nut stealer herself, whose very gaze caused terror in the heart of the boldest tree leaper? The brother must be rescued, and so Squirrel leapt into the unknown. Chapter 4, Problem Solving. The annoyance Squirrel had with those who had been hoarding the acorns caused them to think about the situation carefully. Then they came up with a plan. They saw the little pegs holding the tree knots together, the branches covering the hole hollowed out in the trunk. If they could tug out the one at the bottom, just so it would cause the woven branches and leaves to tumble away. The store holes were so overfully full that the riches would just pour forth like a nutty deluge, all for their friends to scoop up and scamper away with, delightedly chittering at their cleverness. Chapter 5, Collaborating. No one believed that Squirrel had figured it out. They stamped their tiny rodential foot and shook their extremely too bushy tail and squeaked at the top of their lungs. Old Squirrel looked down their nose at Squirrel and once said, "Well, if you will lead the way, I'm sure someone will follow." So Squirrel dashed down to the bottom of the tree and pointed at the knot. 5 big, strong, fat-tailed squirrels bounded up behind him and pushed Squirrel out of the way. Together, the 5 burly squirrels bit on the one knot and tugged and tugged and tugged. Nothing happened. Come now, help," called Squirrel, and he wrapped his arms. I don't know what he wrapped his arms around because I have no idea where you're going with that. But he inspired his fellow squirrels to join in the task, and they all, even the very smallest squirrel, worked together to take apart the barrier to the great nut stealer's hoard, and golden acorns fell out in a shower of bounty. Okay, you guys are good. Okay. So that is the kind of thing that we do in space. Thank you, everyone who contributed to that story. Love so much. Rob, this is what we do in space when you're not looking. Just saying.
Oh, that's delightful. Delightful. Thank you, Sparrow, for giving us a taste of creative writing in space.
And
but also
Ruth has
how
her hand up.
You are building a collaborative and compassionate community of writers. Your capsule really models how fun it is to subcreate together too. So thank you very much, Sparrow.
We do. We have someone's hand up. Ruth, is there something that you would like to add, please?
I was just going to say that I took your path course on storytelling.
Yes, you did.
And that's another thing perhaps people might want to look into. The nuts and bolts and storytelling. I can't remember what the middle one's called, but that was also very instructive. It's the good grounding, and then they could come to space and build up on it like the spiral.
Yep, absolutely.
I just wanted
absolutely. The path courses, when they run, get right at the foundational level of these skills, and that was a great idea. Thank you, Ruth. But Rob, please continue. What else would you like us to know?
Yeah, I'd like to share that in December and January, we're offering several Sparrow modules. These include writing workshop in December, a creative writing weekend intensive at the end of December. And in January, Sparrow, you are candidating creative writing stories in the darkness with co-preceptor Jenny Starstuff.
Yes.
So yeah, why don't you share just a little bit more about your upcoming modules?
Okay. For December Creative Writing Workshop, it will be very much what I've been describing so far. We meet, we talk about writing ideas, people go away and try them. You might be working on a long work, you might try just one scene out of the blue. We trade work and comment on each other. And one of the things I am proudest of is that everyone can, if you might be very reticent about sharing your writing, this might feel weird. There are plenty of places on the internet where you can go to have people be mean to you. But if you want support and excitement about your story, no matter what level you are at, then you come right here to Space Creative Writing Sector and you say, I need kid gloves. And that's a way to say, I am really nervous about this. Please tell me what you like. And we have methods like I like, I notice, I wonder. I learned I notice from Corey Olson. And question, I wonder, the questions that readers have that will help you draw more into the story, but without saying, this was confusing. It's just, I wonder what happens next, please tell me, which is very much how people write. So workshop, you can ask for, oh boy, I need every bit of commentary. I'm about to submit this to the press. Or casual, like normal everyday people talking to each other, or really gentle. New Year's weekend, Friday the 30th, Saturday the 31st, and Sunday, January 1st. Now, this is a December module, so you must enroll before December begins, even though it happens at the very end of the month. Over those 3 days, there will be 8 hours of class time together. There will be 8 hours of writer space time together where we just sit and we write, and I say, okay, rest your eyes. Okay, rest your wrists, back to work. And the goal is to complete an entire story, a short story, maybe 2,000 to 5,000 words, or maybe I have heard of novel in a weekend camps. If you want to bring that in the door, you bring that in the door. I'm here for you. But we're going to do a complete from pre-write to post-edit in those 16 hours that we're together, plus all those hours in between. Who needs sleep when you're going to be cranking out more words, which is very exciting. But in January, I am collaborating with the amazing Jenny Starstuff, who is a NASA educator. She is a solar system ambassador. And I said to Jenny during Myth, Jenny, are there things you would like creative writers to know? And she said, oh, there are things that I would like writers to know. And so we're going to alternate between learning something cool about space from Jenny, like about the constellations. See, I'm making this cool little blanket with beads on it, with constellations on there. So we're going to learn about constellations one week and then write short scenes that incorporate what we just learned, to comment on, to read each other's work, to comment on each other's work, and then learn another thing. First week, constellations. The second week is relativity. The third week is the life cycle of stars. And the fourth week is life in space, both alien and human, because once humans go into space, we're the aliens. I'm so excited to learn these things from Jenny, turn them into little pieces of story, and writers will end the month with 4 scenes, which might be from different stories or might be connected in some way. And this kind of collaboration is just a dream come true for me. So please come join the energy and have fun telling stories in the darkness.
Thank you so much, Sparrow. It's just delightful, delicious to see how much creativity you're bringing to space. And thank you for sharing about those upcoming modules. We've been expanding the creative writing sector. And so Sparrow is offering those modules. And we also have a creative writing module candidating for January from our dear Serena Higgins. That is on Poetic Meter. So please check out our upcoming modules. Thank you again, Sparrow, so much. All right, so we're gonna transition to a couple more awards. 2 more categories. Number 7, award number 7 is called the Fledgling Award. This is a draw for all of our newest spacers. All students whose first module with us was either in October or November were entered into this draw. So recent newcomers to space. And the winner of the Fledgling Award goes to Chris S. Congratulations, Chris. It's great to have you a part of space. Our 8th award is called the Flying Sensei Award. This is a draw for our space preceptors. Any preceptor who has taught at least one module from the beginning, December 2021, was entered into this draw. And we picked 2 preceptors from among the names. And the Flying Sensei Award goes to Nubeta and Dr. Carl Anderson. Congrats to you both, and thank you so much for teaching in space and for sharing your passion with us. I see Larry here. We're going to transition to Dr. Larry Swain's capsule next. This time it's featuring our language sector. Now, our language sector includes languages historical, modern, invented, languages, beginning, advanced languages. And so a little introduction to Dr. Larry Swain. Dr. Swain is a faculty member in our MA and space programs at Signum. His academic work focuses on early medieval preservation and appropriation of classical literature and culture. He also cooks and is a respectable home chef. Please welcome Dr. Swain. The title of Dr. Swain's capsule is First Steps in Old English. In this capsule, students can take their first steps into Old English and get a taste of the original language, its vocabulary, syllabary, or general structure. So hi, Larry. Over to you.
And thanks to Kako in the comments. I don't know if that's true, but
Takako says Larry looks younger today.
And I don't know how I'm supposed to follow Sparrow. That was an amazing capsule. That was a lot of fun. All right, so as Rob said, our language modules cover a lot of things. We started way back in December with beginning Old English and some advanced Old English readings, and added Latin, and now we've added Ancient Greek, and there's Japanese, and there's been Klingon. and some others that I probably have missed along the way somewhere. So that's always fun. So I chose to do Old English today, in part because Old English is beginning Old English is a candidate for January, and it's you don't have to learn an entirely new alphabet, so that makes it a bit easier. So I thought what I would do, at least for part of today, is start with what I usually do in my first lecture in class. Usually, most classes, I don't talk a lot. I might be, set up the next lesson and explain what's going on, and then have the people involved read the text, and then we start working through exercises and those kinds of things. Right, and it's entirely up to the participant as to how much work you want to put into between sessions in terms of working on the exercises. I mean, if you're here to learn a language, you're probably going to want to put some in, but sometimes life gets in the way and people come, and we're a learning community. We're all in this together. We help out and we support one another. So everybody is welcome no matter what and no matter when. But most of them, at least my modules in doing this, is I sit back. And the students do most of the talking, because we're talking about the exercises and learning material. Learning material. So yes, and I will say that in a few minutes, I'm going to hope that some of you will want to actually participate and do some reading in Old English. So turn on cameras or microphones or whatever. All right, so this image, by the way, is from the Old English period. It's from the Staffordshire hoard, which you may or may not remember was discovered here in 2009 and made kind of a big splash and everything. And so this is one of the golden pieces that was found in that hoard, and it's talked about. And you can see some of the typical Anglo-Saxon type of artwork, right? Definitely zoomorphic, i.e. big fancy word for saying in the form of animals, right? But here we've got a bird and the nice streaky feathers there, and the went a little too far, and probably there would have been garnets or some other jewel that would be in that eye socket there. All right, let's go on to that. So I like to orient students. I like talking about this stuff. It just kind of really, really fascinates me. And it's also something that got me into Tolkien, right? I had no idea who this Tolkien was when I was in college, these many, many centuries ago. And so getting into linguistics and the history of linguistics, and then I was introduced to this Tolkien guy and read Lord of the Rings, and the rest, as they say, is history. But Indo-European, so Old English and modern English, because we're a descendant of Old English, are Indo-European languages, right? And so called because from India, right? Hindi and all the descendant languages from Sanskrit and in India, all the way to Western China, and then back westward to, well, us, right? In fact, now while we can say that the Victorian Empire is no longer in existence, the sun really does not set on Indo-European speakers, because we've taken the languages around the world, on every continent and everywhere that we know. So among them, right, are Old English, Latin, Greek, Polish, Iranian. You might be surprised to learn Sanskrit, Old Irish. And so I've given some words here. We call this the comparative method, right? So when what's his name? I want to say Walter. That was probably incorrect. Anyway, a man named Dr. Jones, not Indiana Jones, different Dr. Jones. He worked for the East India Tea Company and found himself in India in the end of the 1700s. Roughly equivalent to when the American Revolution was happening and the French Revolution, and Edward Gibbon was writing about the rise and fall of the Roman Empire and blaming Christianity for it. Ben Franklin, all that kind of stuff, right? So he's roughly equivalent to that. But anyway, Jones found himself in his free time walking around the jungles of India and discovering or finding these large temples with all sorts of interesting carvings on them, including carvings of words and sentences. And he wanted to know what those said. So he learned Sanskrit, which was the language that they were written in. And as he was doing so, he noticed that there was a lot of similarity between Sanskrit and Latin and Greek, because as a British schoolboy of the 18th century, he would have been taught Latin and Greek from the time he was knee-high to a grasshopper. And you can see that here very clearly, is that Latin pater and Greek pater, and then Sanskrit is piter. Well, P's and T's and R's, right? There's a slight difference in one of the vowels, but those look awfully similar. And you keep piling on more and more vocabulary that looks awfully similar, and endings and syntax and all of that kind of stuff. Well, pretty soon you get to find out that either there's a whole lot of influence one way or the other, which geographically is really unlikely between the middle and eastern parts of the Mediterranean and all the way into northern India, or they must have derived from a similar root, right? And that similar root is what we call Proto-Indo-European. So here I've given some examples of the word father in the listed languages, right? Vader in Old English, pater in Latin and Greek. Polish has a completely different root for father, but I threw it up there just for grins and giggles. Iranian is Itar, Sanskrit Pitar, and Old English again, Itar, which looks an awful lot like that Iranian one. There's another root that also means father or dad, Ata, that the Polish used and still use for that. William Jones, thank you, Carrie. So just to give you the kind of full map of Indo-European languages, right? They split into two parts, sometime fairly early, and we call them Satem or Kentum languages based on how they say the word 100. Right, and so if they begin with the Satem, right, which is one form of 100, they belong in one part of the family, and if they do it with a Kentum, and English is part of the Kentum because Hund, right, that nice Germanic H that we no longer say, is part of the Kentum part. Ruth, you had a hand up.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking the alternate Polish word for father, the ata, isn't that very close to the Elvish word for father? I can't remember whether it's Sindarian or Quenya, but
it is, but I cannot definitively say whether or not Tolkien just copied it or if it's just happy accident. Right. I'd have to look into that further, and just don't know that. Perhaps somebody else here does know that, or nobody's saying anything, so I'm going to assume no. Right. So, and among the Kentum languages, then is where we are. Right, the Germanic languages, and Germanic splits into West Germanic, East Germanic, and North Germanic. And the East Germanic, the only one left is Gothic, and Takako is our current resident expert, so I will take her word for it. North Germanic gives us Old Norse, and from Old Norse then the modern Scandinavian languages, Icelandic and Norwegian and Swedish and Danish, and Faroese, and all of that kind of good stuff. And West Germanic then is the rest of us, right? Old Low Franconian. What a great name. That gives us that, but also Old High German, Old English, Old Saxon, all of those kind of really exciting, lovely old languages that I'm sure we all know and love in there. But that's the tree as we see it. Boo, Franks, boo, Franks. Very nice, Gary. So, and among other words that we like to talk about, right? Modern word hound comes from Old English hund, which comes from Proto-Germanic hundas, from Proto-Indo-European word quan or quanto, but it also gives us the Latin canis, which we have borrowed into words like canine and canary and kennel. Greek kunos, which gives us cynic and quinsy. Old Irish, some of you will know the character Cahulan. from the Toyne and other places, right? But the first part of his name, Coo, means hound, the hound of Ulster. And of course, the Welsh word key, which gives us the word corgi, right? So all of these derive from Quon and Proto-Indo-European, and there are others. All right, Germanic languages, because they're cool. We haven't mentioned Yiddish yet, or Afrikaans, or Frisian, all the other good stuff. All right, I think I have to stop sharing to share the other thing that I want to do. Oops, that's not the place I want to go. All right, so what did I do with it? Alphabet. That's what I want to talk about. Let's talk about alphabet. So the Old English alphabet is basically the same as the Latin alphabet, more or less. But one of the things very early on that these Old English writers figured out was that there are sounds in English that just simply do not exist in Latin, right? So things like j, right? What we would call the J sound. It's not a terribly common occurrence in Old English, but it does occur. There is no J in the Latin alphabet, and so therefore there is no J in the Old English alphabet. So how do you get that sound? How do you represent that sound in writing? Well, they made a CG and said, okay, that's that sound. Woohoo. Got that one figured out. Same thing with sh. There's no sh sounds in Latin. And so how do you write that? Well, for whatever reason that I cannot fathom, they decided that an S and C together, right? We moderns write it as an SH, but they wrote it as an SC. And so the word ship or bishop or, well, the fecal matter stuff, right? They were less shy about saying that, but right, those are all written with an SC. On there. In fact, if you look at the English vocabulary, if you have an SH word, that is likely a word that comes from Old English. If you have an SK word like sky or skipper or skip or skiff, that was likely borrowed from Old Norse when Old Norse settlers came into England. Yes, exactly, Carrie. Shit, right? And there's actually towns, like one called Shitterton. Shit town. In there. So what are we looking at on screen? Well, I'm really glad you asked that question, Sharon. This is technically it's Cambridge Corpus Christi manuscript number 214, which is a copy of Boethius's Constellation of Philosophy from the early 11th century. But I wanted to talk about it here because it is one of the manuscripts that tells us a great deal about the Old English alphabet and how they thought about the Old English alphabet. And let's see if I can make it bigger. Yes, there we go. So what some enterprising either student or teacher, we think it was probably a teacher because there's some commentary on the earlier pages, did is they went through and they marked with the English alphabet how to take the Latin words, what order to put the Latin words in to make sense in English. Whoops, didn't quite mean to go that large, right? But we also see some oddities here in the alphabet. And let me just kind of focus on this line right here. So after the Z or the Z, right, comes this little guy that seems to be considered by the Anglo-Saxons as part of the alphabet. What is that thing, you might be asking? Well, that would be a good question. That is called a Tyronian et. And so called because the guy named Tyro, who was secretary, basically, to the author Cicero. Well, Cicero talked a lot and talked very fast. And so Tyro invented a whole system of shorthand in order to take down Cicero's speeches very quickly, and then he would go back through and then write them out. whole. And so one of the most commonly accepted in the Middle Ages of Tyro's system was this kind of 7-looking thing that stands for the word et, which means and. So when Old English authors then are writing in Old English, right, they borrow this, and it stands for and, or ond, both of them being our modern word and in there. But it came not only to substitute for the word and, whatever it's used in a manuscript, but for the syllable. And so when we have words like Answarian, A-N-D or O-N-D, S-W-A-R-I-A-N, which is our modern word answer, they would just use that, right? Even though it's not and as a separate word, but it is and in the syllable. And so they just started using that to indicate that syllable, that sound, right? The one next to it, above fama there, and this is a very well drawn one. This does not always happen very well in manuscripts. And this is called the win, right? So there are some things in the Old English alphabet where they took symbols from the Futhorc, right, the runes, and put them into the alphabet, and they used that instead of something for Latin. Why? Well, one of the reasons is when you get to a Latin word like Wult, spelled U-U-L-T or V-U-L-T or V-V-L-T, right? Because the Latin alphabet used the same symbol for the vowel U as well as for the consonant W. And so for these people who had never been under Roman rule, when they're trying to learn Latin, they do things like invent word spaces. But when there's difficult words like and sounds, right, they decided they needed a different symbol for the W than they use for the U, right? And we see the U up here in this line above it. And so they use the runic symbol win, which is also a word, which means joy or happiness. I think I keep accidentally hitting something, right, to indicate the W sound. And that's going to last all the way up until the Benedictine Reform movement in the late 10th century or early 11th. And of course, once those silly Normans come along, well, forget about it. You know, the win is gone. As is the thorn, which is the letter next to it, right? Old English, like Greek, has a th sound, right? That, this, theater, and so on and so forth. Latin doesn't have that. So when Latin borrowed words from Greek that had a theta, right, which is the Greek letter that indicates that sound, right, they just wrote it as a th, hence theater, right? And in German borrowed that from Latin, and that's why it says theater in German instead of theater. But for English, right, they said, well, this happens all the time, so we need a symbol. And again, they borrowed the thorn from the Futhorc, the runic alphabet, and stuck it into the English alphabet, and we've got that symbol right there. Another one on the next line below here is called the ash. And Old English in the vowels has an ah sound, like pat and bat and vat and that, and so on and so forth. It's that nice ah sound, and so they wanted a symbol for it. But instead of taking a symbol, the ash symbol from the runic alphabet, they took another symbol from Latin, which was totally different. In Latin, it's I, right? This would be the beginning vowel sound of equitatis, right? Equality, equanimity, evenness, if you will, right? And so it would symbolize an I sound. Well, they took that diphthong and they started using it for the ah sound for whatever reason. Somebody had too much mead that day or something, I don't know. But that's what they did. So there are some symbols, you know, basic Latin alphabet, and we have to remember that things like J and V didn't exist in the Latin alphabet, so therefore they don't exist in the English alphabet. But then we also had some other sounds. So we either took from the Futhorc or we invented our own. And so those are in there. Ruth.
Yeah, sorry, very random question. but I'm getting almost like a shorthand. Like modern shorthand has symbols, obviously, for different sounds. Did that evolve from this, or is it a complete coincidence that it's a similar sort of style of symbols for sounds rather than letters?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I mean, a long time coming, right? But
Yeah.
that's kind of the inspiration of that, right? And of symbols that represent specific sounds, and that can become a shorthand.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. Let's. I think we've got some time left, at least a couple minutes. So let's practice some reading in Old English, and a really easy text to do this with, particularly since I had the file on my computer, is the Lord's Prayer in Old English. So anybody who wants to read some Old English, I'll help you through. But we've got the Old English in one line, and then the Modern English, and then a space. So who wants to take the first line? Go ahead, Sharon.
There we go. Okay, let's see if my premier audit of Old English umpteen years ago can serve me in good stead. Okay, here we go. Peder ura thothe eart on heophonum. Yeah, heophonum.
Nice. Yeah, so we've got our ash that I was just talking about there in fatter, right? Our modern word hour in its Old English form, thu, and that, right? So our Father, you who are in heaven, or in the heavens, because that's a plural, right? So you can recognize, now that you know what they are, right? That these are just earlier forms of our modern English words. All right, who would like to take the next one? Nobody.
I will.
All right, go for it.
Si then nama gehalgad.
Yeah, perfect. And next, Ruth, you want to take one?
I'll
Wesley?
have a go, but it's going to be horrible.
Well, that's why these are the first steps in Old English. But I saw Wesley's hand, so Wesley, go ahead.
To bekuma din riche.
Yeah. And good that you caught the C there. I didn't really talk about that one. So you've had some Old English, right? So in certain contexts, right, a C is becoming a cha, right? So in words like richa, because it's between two front vowels, this pulls the C, right? If you think about where you're pronouncing a hard C, so car, right? Now, if you say car and you notice where your tongue and the air is coming out when you say that k sound, right? And so the two front vowels, the I and the right, pull the k forward to a cha. Right, that's what's going on there. And so in certain places, and of course the manuscripts don't mark these. So modern editors do sometimes for us, but the manuscripts don't. And so you just kind of have to know that that's a richa and not a rice. All right, Ruth, you want to try it? It's just 3 words.
There's a W in the middle of a word. Gripa din willa?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, din willa.
Okay.
Anybody else want to take me up on a line?
Sure, I'll go again.
Yeah, all right, good.
Oops. Okay, here we are. On eorthon swa on heophonom. Heophonom.
Yeah, great. Rob?
Hey, Larry. Okay, we'll give this one a shot. Okay, whoa.
Yeah, you get the hard one.
Urne gedag wamliken hlaf sile us todag.
Yeah, that works. So a couple of sound things here. This is a totally made up word that yadach wamlichen. So
Yadach.
Yeah. Right. So basically, there's a whole theological thing that Jerome did in the Vulgate with, give us this day our daily bread. But he said super substantialum bread is what Jerome says. And so this is an attempt to kind of thread the needle between daily and super substantial bread. Is what's going on there. So cloth, if we were really going to be technical about it, is our modern word loaf, right? Give us today our daily loaf, is what's going on there. And then to die, the G there is already turning into a Y in the Old English period, which is kind of nice. All right, Takako, you want to do an easy one?
I'm not sure, but yeah. And forgive us, ure, guilt us, need us, gift us. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh, come on. You've been through Old Saxon, you've been through Old English. You've got this. You're our expert. All right, next one. Anyone? Volunteers.
Okay, I'll give it a go.
Excellent.
Swala we forgidon urumum. I don't have no idea about the last one.
Urum. Yep.
Urum. Yeah. Gelatiliodum.
Yeah. So swa. Lovely things that come off the tongue, but just as. We forgive off, and I didn't talk about this letter before, but this is called an eth, and the Old English writers borrowed it from the Irish, and so we have two symbols for the th sound, right? We have the thorn that we talked about before and ran into in previous sentences, but we also have this eth sound, and it used to be thought or argued that, well, maybe one is voiced and one is voiceless, and voiced means your vocal cords vibrate when you say it, right? The difference between that and this. But we found that further studies, they're just used interchangeably, sometimes in the same sentence for the same word by the same writer. So who knows why? We do not. And of course, this is our guiltendum, is our modern word guilt. So forgive us our guilts, right? Our guiltus, just as we forgive those who have guilted us, have guilts against us. And ne yelad thu us an nunga, right? And so don't lead us, right? And lad is the past tense in Old English for our modern word lead, right? That was yelad. Ours is led, right? He led us. But do not lead us into temptation. Ac alis us of ifula sodlicha, but deliver us from evil. Truly, sodlicha. That's a word we need to bring back, I think, right? Sodlich. I should have mentioned before, or could have mentioned before, the LIC part is our modern word like, but this is how you form adverbs in Old English, is you take the word like and you stick it on the end of things. So sodlicha, truth like. True like. So there we go. All right, we've got some chat stuff to catch up on. Soothly, yes. Swah is kind of cute. It is very cute. I love it. One time I taught Old English to some grad students, and they really liked swah so much it became a greeting. They'd walk down the hall and say swah, which was really good. And Wesley, it looks like you've got another Old English learner there with you.
Yes, he's watching some Peppa Pig right now. So some modern English, British
Right.
English. Yes.
Well, very cool. How much time do I have left, Rob?
I think we've got a minute or two if we wanted to wrap.
All right. So yeah, I think Old English is really cool. I got into it because of that Tolkien guy. That one or two of you may have heard about at some point. And it's a really great language to learn and to read. We've got a really great community in the advanced, right? That was people who went through the MA program and took Old English and then did an intensive semester of Beowulf, combined with people who went through 7 months of the beginning Old English module, and now they're all working together on various kinds of texts that usually are not read in the college classroom and those kinds of things. So that's been really exciting for me, is that we get to read other things and some things that I've never read in Old English, and so I get to work through these with people, and it's, we've got a really great learning community. So I hope we can add some others by taking the Old English module in January and running with it. Text in terms of to read or to learn. Carrie asked that question.
I guess I was thinking if it was in Old English and we were reading or learning it, but not text as in a textbook.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, of course I'm a little partial to Beowulf. I mean, right. It's kind of right there. But outside of a Beowulf text, like the fourth edition of Father Kleber's Beowulf, which is now the standard, another one would be 8 Old English poems, right? So that gives you 8 of the shorter poems, but are that really wonderful, like the Wanderer and the Seafarer, which are really wonderful texts, and that should be readily available at not too much cash to find. But 8 Old English poems would be a good one. If you want to do some prose, that depends on the kind of prose that you want. But if you want some like Saints' Lives and those kinds of things, Dumbarton Oaks Medieval Library has been issuing texts with facing page translations of Alfred's Lives of Saints and some other things, and so you might want to look there.
Well, thank you so much, Larry, for this
pleasure.
capsule. And it was a delight for me to translate again. It was a reminder. I forgot my G's. Cadman's hymn, Nu Shulon Hedian.
Ooh, A for the day. A for the day.
But I remember Modiathonk. There's a G there, but
yes.
Why? There we go.
Modiathonk.
Modiathonk. So I need to join back in to one of your Old English.
Yeah, anytime. You're welcome anytime. Any skill levels welcome.
Yeah, it's just a treat, Larry, to have you offer this capsule and showcase our language sector. If you want to catch more from Dr. Swain in particular, you can check out, he is offering a continuing beginning Greek class in December, but in January, his offerings include Old English 1. So if you want to dive in as a beginner to Old English, that would be the one to choose. Or for advanced students, Dr. Swain is offering Advanced Old English Beowulf 1 for experienced students. Ooh. So yes,
let me just put in a plug in for the Greek, if that scares you, right? We're going really slow. We've got a textbook. We've done lesson 1. We're doing lesson 2, but we probably won't finish that this month, and we'll pick that up in December. So if you decide that you want to do the Greek thing and jump in, you're not going to be far behind, and it's not going to be hard to catch up. So we're taking our time. No rush, no hurry, no pressure.
Oh, that's great to hear. And it's a reminder too of just how you can be a community, learning the language together. We have many students who will be part of a cohort, and month by month, just continuing to participate in the particular language. So we've had some cohorts, there'll be just small segments where it might be just 3 or 4 modules. Egyptian hieroglyphs, for example, would be just 4 modules as part of the series. And then we have some longer series like Old English or Latin, where you can continue month by month, just kind of advancing in the language. So yes, thank you, Larry. And as a final note, just about our language sector, in December, we're offering 5 language modules in total. And in January, we are candidating a whopping 13 language modules. These include Egyptian hieroglyphs, Latin, Old English, Old Norse, beginning Scottish Gaelic, conversational German, Japanese, and even Klingon. So we've got historical languages, modern and invented, and January is the best and freshest time to start with space, because many of those are just the beginning cohort classes. So if you want to start with us as a cohort, it'd be great to have you vote for the January language that you're interested in there. So, all right, we are going to transition to the last awards as part of our space awards ceremony. And we are at award number 9. And another fun name, this one's called Date Night in Space. So this award goes to 2 people. Taking space classes can be a wonderful adventure, but taking space classes as a couple can be even more fun. Actually, we had 2 couples tie for the Date Night in Space award. So both couples will receive bonus tokens. This award goes to Zach and Magali S. So congrats to you and our other couple, Chris and Crystal B. Congratulations to you both. As couples, you took a combined total of 22 modules with us, tying at 22. So thank you and congrats. Okay, our 10th and final award is the Perfect Attendance Award. This award was a draw from amongst all of our students who had perfect attendance in our highest enrollment month, which was this past September. So the Perfect Attendance Award goes to, drumroll, Aaron B. Congrats, Aaron. A bonus token has been or will be added to your BlackBerry account. I wanted to mention a couple things. Even though our 10 awards are done, we have that ongoing award for the rest of today. That I'm calling the Space Abs Award. If you purchase a 5-pack today, Eastern time by midnight, we will up that to a 6-pack. So Space Abs, get it? All right, so that's ongoing today. And I just want to celebrate. We have already had a 5-pack purchase today, and announcing the historic first 5-pack purchase ever made in the history of space. That goes to Jason T. So congrats, Jason. Thank you for your purchase of a 5-pack, and it has been upped to a 6-pack. One other thing I wanted to mention was our round trip special. So this is an ongoing promotion from now until December 1st, when we close voting. So if you are a student who enrolls in December and votes for January, as our annual celebration goes, we're going to gift you a bonus token. And if it is your first ever enrollment in December, you're new to space and jumping in for the first time in December, we're going to give you a free vote for January. We just love how the community is extending and expanding, and so that is the round trip special, open from now until the end of December 1st, and then we'll announce all those who got the round trip special, and we'll give you a bonus token if you qualify. So that is the end of our awards ceremony in celebration of our first year in space. All right, so we're going to transition to our 4th and final space capsule, this time featuring our general humanities sector. Presenting this capsule is Wesley Shantz. Wesley is also a fellow student with me in Japanese, and so it's delightful to see you and precepting a course in January with us. But he's gonna showcase our general humanities sector. Wesley Shantz is a teacher and space preceptor at Signum. He has also served as a coordinator for Signum Academy and a tutor for Writers Forge. He enjoys Mad Libs, learning Japanese in space, reading books with his almost three-year-old, who we saw there, and playing and talking about video games with friends and students of all ages. Please welcome Preceptor Wesley Shantz. The title of Preceptor Shantz's capsule is Video Games in Space. The description: the capsule will introduce video game studies, available in January, and will point forward to future modules like Dominique Nardi's video game storytelling in February. We'll look at the ways in which games impact us through play, asking questions about video games' significance and their presence in popular culture. Hi, Wes.
Hi.
Great to have you here, and take it away.
Oh, I think this will work. Yeah, good to be here. Thank you so much. I'm going to start with a quick question. I'm hoping that people can see everything okay. Do you recognize this game, anybody? And you can just unmute and speak.
Space Invaders, isn't it?
It is. It is. Well done. I've made a modification. Maybe you can read it. It was just read for you too. Video games in space there. I like the way that the aliens, the invaders, are encroaching on our little lone shooter down here. Of course, we've got a couple extra ones, extra lives, just in case. But now these words are coming down to get us too, right? There's a certain I get a little bit anxious or nervous when I talk about things that I really enjoy, and if you as if it might get in the way of the enjoyment, right? And so I hope that is not what happens. I hope instead that our discussing and talking about these things brings out more aspects that we can enjoy together. So let's make these words part of our defense system here and extra lives for us instead of attackers. And I think that part of the way I'm going to do this, my hope is that I'm going to approach games a little bit obliquely here in this first module that I'm offering, and that's via a text, a traditional text, a literary text, a novel, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Oh, Laurel has read it. Laurel, do you mind unmuting and talking a bit? What did you love about it? Because I love it too.
The character interactions, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was one of those books where I heard about it and then a book club I run selected it. So it started some fascinating discussion, especially among people who didn't play video games.
Great.
So it's a fun book. And it's one that's so easily approachable, even if you aren't already interested in video games, and sparks great discussion.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I think it's going to be a sort of like half of a books club type of thing that we'll do, talking about this book, talking about the characters who are really interesting and their relationships, right? Each of them on their own is great. And then when you bring them together and you play them off one another, such cool things start to happen. The way that Gabrielle Zevin presents them sort of one by one and then very quickly puts them into contact with each other. I'm sorry, there's some earthquaking here. Oh, I'm going to admit Christopher. Yeah, and then the other half of the module will be really looking at the games themselves, right? So kind of more directly the games that are referenced in the book, and some of the elements of those games, their music, their art, their gameplay, of course, and their story. So that's the general overview here. Now, can anyone point out for me the reference that is being made here, the allusion in the title, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow?
Well,
go for it.
The Macbeth soliloquy.
The Macbeth. Yes. I'm sorry. Who's talking? I can't quite.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my video is not working very well. This is Christopher.
Oh, welcome, Christopher. Well done. I've got the soliloquy here. If anyone would like to read it, I invite you to do so. But if not, I've also got Denzel Washington, a clip of his recent turn as Macbeth.
I'd be happy to do it, but I don't know if I can compete with Denzel Washington.
No, you can. You absolutely can. You are in person, so to speak, and thus you are more real. I'm going to say in this moment, because we can have a dialogue. We can, and that's the beauty of the space module. So go for it. Yeah, you read it.
Here we go. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Beautiful. I would applaud that. Have you played any any Shakespeare roles, or just studied them in school? Just a student of Shakespeare. Well, in this speech, we have, of course, the phrase that gives us the title of the book. Anyone want to share some interpretation of what, just without a lot of context, right? We don't assume that everyone knows the whole story, but what are you taking from this? What is the force of that phrase, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow?
I've got something. If
Yeah,
that's
please.
okay. Sorry, it's Ruth, by the way.
Go ahead, Ruth.
To me, it starts off the tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow is kind of like continue pushing forwards and keep going. But then when you read the rest of it, it's kind of like, why are you doing it? Why do you keep pushing forwards and keep trying to get further? Because like brief candle, it's going to end. We're not here for that long. Why do that? But then it's kind of like opposites.
Yeah.
So you want to move forward, but then you're like, maybe not. Maybe that's a bad idea.
There is a certain resolute irresolution is what I'm taking from that. And Carrie in the chat, video games aren't signifying nothing. Yeah. No, I think we are meant to push back against this, right? No, of course there's meaning, even if you're just a player on the stage, right? You, of course, are very meaningful, and it does signify, does have meaning. That I think anyway. So we'll hustle along here. Oh no, we won't. Laurel, go for it.
Just want to build on that because the phrase in Macbeth does essentially call to like, this is empty, this is meaningless. But I think in the use in the title, it's focusing more on the concept that even if it does feel futile, there's still that fleeting chance.
Yes.
Like, there's still tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, even if it's not, it's never going to be completely empty. So I really like the illusion there.
Tomorrow could be better type thing.
Yeah, even just a small, single fleeting chance, but there is still a tomorrow and tomorrow.
Yeah, and Carrie follows up, only an idiot rushes to the destiny, the petty pace of tomorrow, never arriving, but always looming. So there's a character in the story, and we'll get to it eventually, of course, in January, who who has a very affirming, like a more affirming take on this as well. That idea that there's more chances and there's more lives, if you like, in a game. You know, you have our extra lives. Here's the next allusion, the reference from the cover of the book, and of course also referenced within the story, is the Great Wave, a woodblock print by Hokusai, a Japanese artist of the mid 19th century, so early to mid 1800s. Okay, yeah, Christopher, no worries. Keep bringing back in as many times as you got. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, right? Another interesting book, Laurel says, not nearly as in-depth in terms of video games, but touches on game narrative. Aaron Morgenstern's The Starless Sea. The Starless Sea, I've heard of, but haven't read. So I think what's great about this book, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, to kind of, again, weave together some things that it's putting before us here. It has this quality of encyclopedic aspiration, right? It brings in art, it brings in poetry and plays and video games and relationships. And this is something that novels are wonderful for. representing life in all its facets and characters' views on that. This image here, does anyone want to just share something that impresses you as you take a look at this image? Probably not for the first time, right? This is a very famous image, but what is striking you as you're looking at it this time? Again, I invite you to
I'd
just
say one thing that's striking me this time is usually it's the wave that's focused on, and you don't really look at the little guys in the boats bowing down in the face of this massive ocean and waves. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at right now.
If you can see just at the bottom of the cover, you can just see the prow of one of the boats. Yeah, there's this quality of the overwhelming power of nature, and then our little human attempts to keep going. Laurel, yeah, please.
I feel like I'm cheating a little bit here because I've discussed this in different classes before,
You're
both
good.
history and art. But I didn't realize at the time it was made, it was because of contact with the Western world was essentially forbidden. So the Great Wave came to represent a lot of symbolic change, whether that was like fear of change, respect of like the idea behind isolation, but not the outcome of it. So every time I see this now, the two things that pop into my mind are fear, respect, and the possibility of exploration.
That's lovely.
In the face of such fear and respect.
I love that. And I read briefly as I was looking at this for the date, I saw that the color blue that's used is like a special color that helps to bring that idea of globalizing, right? This trade between far-flung places and exploration, and this Prussian blue color. Carrie, please. You're seeing this for the first time.
Yes, I was seeing it for the first time, and
Cool.
seeing it on a game cover of a game book.
Yeah.
All I could think of was it's me in the boat against the devs.
Against the devs. You're trying to compete, right? And maybe think of Space Invader, right? They're coming for me, but I have to fight back. I have to use the force I have.
Screen is going to be worse than this one, and the next level is going to be worse than this one, because they know what they have planned for me and I have no idea.
And we love that.
And we love it.
The ratcheting up of the difficulty. Then let's dig into the actual book just briefly here as William knocks on the. Can you stop? Thanks. This is from Emily Dickinson. This is the epigraph to the text. That love is all there is all we know of love. It is enough. The freight should be proportioned to the groove. Yeah, Dickinson's poetry. Anyone a fan or have any quick takes on this? I know we're rattling along. Mount Fuji in the background, a site which holds great. Yes, we would be remiss not mentioning that, of course, all these are views of Mount Fuji, and there's 36 of them in the series, or I believe, and Mount Fuji is a very meaningful place, but in the image is dwarfed by the size of the waves. Yeah, tremendous. The freight and the groove. Thoughts on Emily?
I have lots of thoughts on Emily. I don't want to keep stealing the mic though, if anyone else has some.
There's a fabulous story by Zelazny about these, maybe the woodblock prints, Christopher. Zelazny of Amber fame. I love those Amber books. That's all I've read by him, but
I think he wrote 24 views of Mount Fuji.
Okay, 24 views.
Novella, science fiction.
Yeah. Well, no, please don't hold back. If you want to speak about Emily, now's your chance, because we're about to blast into another
There's
thing.
some of Emily Dickinson's works that I love and some that I can't stand. It's an interesting back and forth. Usually if there's one author, I either like it and I'm ambivalent to the rest, or I hate it and ambivalent to the rest. It's very odd to have two direct dichotomies for me, but Dickinson manages it. I do like this particular piece though, because it struggles against the concept of definition.
Good.
And it's saying like that love is all there is all we know of love. And she's struggling to define what love is within this concept. And she's like comparing it to weight and almost saying like, but do we need to know what love is? And I
It is
think in
enough.
this poem, she comes to the answer of no, we don't. And it differs in other poems, but this particular one I quite enjoy.
She says it is enough. Yeah. And that idea again of dichotomy coming up, and maybe we could put it another way of balance, right? There's a proportion here. There's a fittingness to our knowledge and our ignorance, and how we sort of, again, muddle through. There's a lot of this in the book, characters in love, out of love, various kinds of love, friendship and family and romance. And of course, the love of the work, right? Of doing, in Emily's case, her poetry, in the characters of the book, their video games, their design. And here's one of the games. You can actually play this, is called Emily Blaster, that Sadie Green, one of the main characters, develops for her class. And there's a version of this on the internet that is tied in with the merchandising and the advertising for the book. And it's pretty fun, actually. So I encourage you, not now, because we're talking for a bit longer yet, but later you can go and look this up, Emily Blaster. A few more games. So let's talk about some of the games that appear early in the book and that sort of set the tone for what we're up to in tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Super Mario Brothers, of course, and the Oregon Trail. Anyone want to jump in and share some memories or takes on either of these games?
Oregon Trail. How many possible ways can you find to die in the most horrible fashion possible?
Right. So Oregon Trail, a text-based adventure. Yes, very famously, people are always dying on the Oregon Trail, and that's okay. And again, like the difficulty or even unfairness there is why we keep coming back in a way and trying again. Yeah. And Mario Bros. There's the quote: "You have died of dysentery," Carrie says. And Carrie has survived and lives in Oregon to this day. Well done. The way that the characters meet, just to jump forward a little bit, they're playing video games as kids in the hospital, in the playroom of the hospital. Sadie finds Sam, the other main character, playing Super Mario Brothers, and Sam is very adept at Mario. He can jump and reach the top of the flagpole and slide down to get all the points. And so they hit it off, and they're friends, fast friends in both senses. And much later, when Sam sees her again in the busy train station in Boston when they're in college, he calls out to her, "Sadie Green, you have died of dysentery," to try to get her attention. And of course, she finally turns around and they reconnect. One of the many moments of reconnection. So connection and reconnection through games, through the memory of games, through these fond memories they have together playing games and talking about games. The other kind of like master key to this book, and my read on it this time as I'm reading it again, I really like this thing about the magic eye. It's a really small thing, but when they're in the subway station, all the people in waiting for the train are looking at this thing on the wall, and it's withheld from us and withheld from us, and finally we find out it's this poster for the magic eye. Did anybody have success looking at these 3D images? This is a very 90s thing, I guess. I was never
I
very
used to
good at
try,
them.
but never manage it.
I was never good at these either. And friends of mine would be so fast at getting them, Anyway, the advertisement says, "See the world in a whole new way. This Christmas, the gift everyone wants is the magic eye." there's clearly something about seeing, perceiving, knowing what other people see, right? When they look at you or when they look at things, that this book is really interested in. And there's a kind of trick to seeing, seems to be the way that some of the characters anyway approach the world. They are in it to win the game, right? And they want to find all the hidden secrets in the game, right? Yeah, and if you try to force it, Carrie points out, we used to try to force it to show us more than the goal. Yeah, there's this aspect of trying and then trying without as much effort, so to speak, right? That you can accomplish things sometimes through more gentle approaches. There's a really lovely passage at the end of the book. We'll get to it, of course, Mitch, where they think back to this moment, and it's this kind of thing where it's very open to the reader's interpretation, right? Like, what did they see there in the Christmas themed Magic Eye poster? It's kind of a very the movie Lost in Translation has a famous moment where the actor is saying something, and it's not revealed in the film what he said to the other character. So in game studies, there's this concept of the magic circle being an important way to frame a discussion of games. And there's also been a lot of pushing back against that we can't sort of circumscribe easily what's going on in a game because all sorts of factors interfere. There's so many considerations for the developers as people, as business people, and for players, of course, likewise. We can't just look at the thing, like we like to do a lot of times, following that logic of close reading, of really understanding what's there. So while I'm partial to the magic circle and I love a good close reading, I also really like this idea of the magic eye as kind of a way to break out of that people can see things that are totally disparate, and that a lot of what they see is coming from who they are and their experiences, and their particular tricks and quirks of looking at the world, looking at texts, looking at video games. So I throw that out as a provocation, a theoretical sally. So two people are raising hands, but again, I'm on a screen where it's hard for me to see who's raising hands. So just unmute. Ruth, yeah, unmute.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Go for it.
That the way you were talking about the circle.
Yes.
It reminded me a lot of Lord of the Rings Online.
Oh, good.
And the way Corey's been looking at it as an adaptation. So what choices the developers have made to adapt the story, but then also what we can think about it. Like, he spends a lot of time looking at architecture and trying to figure out like the history through the ruins and things like that. And it's really interesting when you can look at it. Was it Lewis in the tool shed? Either look at the beam or along the beam.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think you can do that with a lot of games, and it can really help you to understand your character almost more.
Yes.
And let you, it sounds daft, but it can help you sort through even what's going on in the real world, as it were. And you can sort of
totally, yeah,
transfer the feelings and experiences and things like that. And
right,
yeah.
by looking at this thing so closely and in this clear light, right? Yeah, we somehow can then transfer that, and then I think it was it Christopher raising a hand here? No, Sharon. Sorry,
Sharon. Yeah,
Sharon, go for it.
I was just gonna offer that for almost any game, some obviously are more. I think it's easier to apply a magic eye in this sense, and in others, it's very lore driven. So, like for example, Corey's looking at Lord of the Rings online. That's a very obvious one. There are some other games out there in which the lore is not established or provided, but people just pick every detail apart of every character and every piece of equipment they have and every like character line they have, and they can construct these incredibly complicated lore behind it. And the reason why I know this is because my young 20s son has had me watch hours of it with him in his youth.
Yeah.
Looking at all his favorite games and all the lore behind them. But I think that it does speak a lot to the idea of the way adaptation can work, as Ruth was just talking about. Some things really, really appeal to some people who are consuming the video game or the adaptation, and they're just incredibly invested in the magic eye or the lore, and others are just taking the game as it comes, the mechanics, and just making their way through the game, and it seems to not really have an impact. But either way, the game is successful. So in a similar way, a film, an adaptation, a text, it's still successful when people are engaging with it. And it helps us, I think, to not be critical, because if you're the magic eye people, you say, oh, these people have no clue. They don't know what we know. And the lore people are like, this is what it means. This is the story behind it all. This is what the developers are saying. And then the other people who just, they're watching Rings of Power going, did it work? I don't know anything about it. I like it. Yeah, it's great. No, music, this, that, the other. And so I don't know. I just want to say that they're all have value. They're all valid.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the kinds of attention differ, but the fact of attention matters a lot. Yes, yes. And this is a funny moment because we're seeing things from Sam's point of view. He's a bit of a loner, I guess you'd say. He doesn't have a lot of friends, but he does have these couple of friends that are very close. And the reason that he turns and looks at the Magic Eye poster at all is because he's worried about how his friend is going to respond if he goes home and says, I didn't even look to see what they were looking at. And then because he turns and looks at it, he directs his attention on behalf of this other person. He sees the third person, Sadie, the girl that he knew as kids that played games with. And so it's this lovely sort of moment of refracted attention, and concerns and things. And anyways, so we're running low on time, and I just wanted to show these bits of text. We haven't looked at, any of the actual text really, but this is the way that the two main characters are introduced, and then the games seminar, the advanced games seminar that one of them is involved in. And so in January, if you do go on and take this, we'll talk much more about those characters. We'll talk about their struggles to connect and reconnect, and about the games that they're developing and that they dream of developing. There's this very important idea, as we kind of mentioned already, having to get together and pick ourselves up and try again. And we learned that from video games for sure, continuing after a defeat. There's a lot of playful things about this book, and the ways that the characters within it think about what they're up to making games. And so we will try to develop those through the weeks of the class, spending about an hour focusing on the theory side of things, and then the second hour each week really focusing on the text and the characters and the stuff going on in the story. So there's a little breakdown of those, circling around this idea of, games as this connection between play and creative art, right? In all the forms that takes. And then as we close here, I'll just say in the following months, right? There's all these great other books people have mentioned, and of course, many other games worth talking about. I do hope this develops into something of a book club for video games, and for those lenses, those perspectives on games. There's great essays and whole books written about ways to interpret, ways to study study games academically. And so this is a few of this slide has a few of the games coming up in February, with Dominic Nardi's video game storytelling module, Inside, Brothers, Portal, What Remains of Edith Finch, and Detroit Become Human are the 5 games that he plans on playing along with you and discussing with you. So that's our general humanities capsule. I think Carrie put something else long in the chat. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to touch on that, but yeah. So there's this consideration of who's playing the game. Non-male players, some plays on easy, drag someone else through, then they get everyone to play, but now on hard, and we see something different every time. Yeah, that's the definition of a classic, isn't it, Carrie? Well, thank you, Christopher. Thank you all for attending, and I'll hand you back now to Rob for the Signum Press, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, Wes, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
We really appreciate you giving a taste of our general humanities sector, but not only that, opening the door really with video game studies. You and Dr. Nardi with it's something that we haven't seen yet in our general humanities sector yet, and so yes, please look at Wes's candidate in January and Dominique's in February. Yeah, thank you very much, Wes. So yeah, in the general humanities sector overall, in December we're offering 5 humanities modules, and in January we are candidating 5 also humanities modules. So you can check those out on BlackBerry if you're interested. And our spacers would know this, but I should just mention how voting works. So whenever I mention we're candidating modules, to vote for a module means to have at least 1 token so that you can cast your vote. And when you cast a vote, you can state which module in our candidating month, which is January at this point, which module that you're interested in taking, and you can pick your first choice all the way through to your 6th choice. And voting is essential. What we look for is at least 4 student votes before we confirm a class. And so it's really based on the menu. We put out the menu, and our students, they tell us what they would like to eat. So that's really how SPACE works, and it really relies on votes. So thank you to all of those who have voted and who will be voting for our January month ahead. I wanted to mention, even though we finished our award celebration, I had announced our first 5-pack token purchaser as part of our Space Abs ongoing award from now till the end to midnight. And we've had 5 5-pack purchasers in total. So I'd like to announce those. It's just delightful to see the response that we've had. So Jason T, 5-pack purchaser, Liz L, Sarah J, Stan S, and Shannon C. Thank you for your 5-pack purchases today. And I understand that John H is also interested in purchasing a 5-pack today. So thank you so much for your response and support for our program. I'd like to mention one more time the round trip special. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay, the round trip special. You can see on BlackBerry, it's available on the left side, space promotion. And so it's just described here. Again, this promotion is going on through to December 1st, where we're welcoming all newcomers to space and also our regulars to have this promotion. So if you enroll in December and vote for January, you will get a bonus token.
And for our newcomers, if you just enroll in December and it's your first time, we will give you a free vote for January. So that is how the round trip special works, but you can look for the verbiage here to explain that in a bit more detail. And this is a great opportunity to invite friends. If you are a regular spacer and really enjoyed space, this is an opportunity to support friends getting it for a little cheaper, to get a 2-for-1 if they're new to space. So that is that promotion. I thought before we close off our space segment here, I'd like to show the admin team who have made this work so wonderful. Directing space has been such an honor and a privilege, and I could not do this without my wonderful team. And so I wanted to just introduce the others. So I direct space, but Pilar Barrera, who you'll see here, is our space faculty liaison. And Pilar looks out for all of our new preceptors, all of their needs every month, and also for our ongoing preceptors. She supports me in more ways than I can count. Thank you so much, Pilar. My wife, Jenny, she is the student communications and admin assistant. Oh, Jenny, she is actually in this moment just experiencing wild reception from all of our spacers. So she is she's granting those bonus tokens to you and answering questions. She just handles so much with our students and just has the pulse of their interests. And thank you so much, Jenny. She reaches out to students when they purchase tokens, enroll, vote, or wish list a module. She just handles those communications in so many creative ways. And thank you so much, Jenny. Sparrow Alden. Sparrow Alden, she is our scheduler Zoom master and space, also a space preceptor, who many of you enjoyed her capsule today. Sparrow, she just do an extraordinary job. Sparrow making sure that all of us are organized and ticking each month with good Zoom sections and everything. Thank you so much, Sparrow. James Tauber, wow. He has designed BlackBerry and has made this growth in space so possible. I was a year ago managing spreadsheets, and that kind of persisted for several months. And as you've just heard about the growth that we've had over this year, just delightful growth. It would not have been possible to manage all this interest without a system so wonderful like BlackBerry. Thank you so much, James. And James is also a space preceptor with expertise in token studies. And so he's offered a number of token modules. And we're looking very forward to his home series next year, 12 months of History of Middle Earth. And so many of you have seen that candidating in January. So look forward to having you check his modules out as well. And then Kira Trigoning. Kira is our outreach and social media coordinator. She comes up with all these nifty graphics to share with the rest of the world about our upcoming modules, both our confirmed modules and our candidating modules. And she has also run a number of campaigns for us, just handling all this all this advertising. Thank you so much, Kira, for all your work in social media. So I will stop sharing my screen. That brings us to the near end of our segment here. And I just want to say again, on behalf of the whole space team, I just want to thank everyone. It has been a marvelous year.
Oh my
it's
goodness.
Spectacular. Corey, so good to have you.
It really is. And so just speaking of space growth, I'd just like to add a couple things here. So the response from you guys during our space session here today has been unbelievable. We have set a record already for the most number of tokens sold in a day ever. In fact, we've sold more tokens today than we've sold in 6 of the individual months of the year leading up to this point. We've sold, let's see, by my count, and hang on, I got to refresh because another 5-pack came in while you were talking just now. But so we're at 61 tokens sold today. So that's not counting the ones that we've been giving away, and that puts us at 134 tokens sold in November so far, which means it has already by a substantial amount. If you remember, let me go back to my my PowerPoint here so that you guys can see. If you remember this slide, right, about our participants, right? We had 124 participants, so we're at 134 tokens sold. Now, tokens sold is not the same as participants, but just to give you an idea of sort of the ballpark where we are, we're expecting. I am now confidently expecting that we're going to break our old records in enrollments. I think in December. So just an amazing day today, and month and year for Space. It really is the beginning of something incredibly exciting.
I hope you can see just as Corey announced this last year, and we're just receiving this response today. Just what a delight and what a fun what fun this is to direct such a this program that has so much opportunity, where we can have preceptors teach what they're passionate about, students learning what they love for the love of it. We're grateful for all of you. It's been just a wonderful experience.
Absolutely. And Stargazer Dino, you are so correct that space tokens make wonderful gifts. We have a system built into BlackBerry so that if you set up a BlackBerry account and purchase tokens, you can gift them to people. We'll reach out by email. Jen will reach out to them by email and inform them, hey, congratulations, you've been gifted a token. They just then have to come to BlackBerry, create their own account, and their token will show up in their account. And once they have an account, you can just, basically send them tokens at any point, however often you like. And so this is also a really great way. Not only can you give them away to somebody, but you can do modules together with somebody. That would be, I think, really fun, for Christmas, to be like, hey, let's do, because then you're giving the gift not only of the opportunity to take space classes, but of like time with you as well. So, time together learning, which has been awesome. So, anyhow, and like and just to say, I mean, it has been so cool to experience this from the other side as well. Both of my sons and now my father are all taking space classes now, and just watching them and hearing from them. I was just recently talking with my mother, and her telling me about, how wonderful it has been for my dad to be able to take space modules. He's been working with Sparrow and the group there in creative writing, and anyway, it's been phenomenal. So I just can't encourage people enough to give it a try. Give them as presents, and it's really been a wonderful time. Rob, thank you so much, not only of course for your time today, but for all of your work over this year, and I can't wait to see what this next year in space brings for us, and the updates that we'll have next year this time when it comes campaign time.
So friends, Signum for the whole family. We've got Signum Academy for kids. My kids are not quite old enough. We've got 4 kids. Can't wait till they can enjoy Signum programming, but now space available to adults everywhere, and just to name 2 of our programs, right? And so just one more thank you to all of our capsule preceptors, Sarah, Sparrow, Larry, and Wes. Thank you so much for showing the breadth and depth of our space program. We are so excited about this program. It's been a marvelous year, as I've said, and thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Corey.
Thank you, Rob.